All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to give everybody just a second to hop on, make sure we are good to go, and then we will get started. How are you, Chandra?
Doing good. It's been a busy day, so I'm excited to
Yeah.
get to the live today.
Yeah, me too. We've had a lot going on, haven't we, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's been a good day.
For sure.
Nothing better than being able to help other salon owners. You know what I mean? Like there's just something really cool about it. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
let me know you can check and make sure we're live on Facebook, and then we will get going here.
Yep. I think we're up.
Awesome, awesome. Sweet. Well, let's get started. We'll let people join in whenever and however they can. For now, we are just going to get started. So, welcome, guys. Whether you are on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, watching inside of your BBA portal, wherever, we are so glad that you're here tonight. Now, tonight's live is going to be just a little bit different because after we did our Booked But Broke series, this is one of the lives that we did a few months ago, I guess. Our inboxes just completely blew up. Like they went crazy. We had owners and solos reaching out with question after question, and most of them connected straight back to that specific topic. So instead of our usual Q&A format, we thought it would be more helpful to create a live tonight that answers as many of those questions as we possibly could in the amount of time that we have. Next month, though, we will be back with our normal Q&A session, but tonight we are going to dig right into those core issues that came up during that Booked But Broke series. So, if you're watching live and something comes up about tonight's topic, make sure that you drop that in the chat. We will do our best to grab a couple of those before we wrap up. And just to set the stage for all of you guys out there, after Booked But Broke, we heard the same story over and over and over again. I am packed. My calendar looks amazing, but my bank account tells a completely different story. I'm exhausted. I'm working harder than ever, and I've really got nothing to show for it. Listen, guys, we get it. We do, because we have both been in your shoes, especially in that scenario. But here's the truth. Packing your books doesn't fix a broken business model, and it never, ever will. For some reason, we always think that it will, but it won't. It really just keeps you stuck in the same cycle that you've been in over and over again. Chandra, how many times have we seen owners hit record sales, right? Record months, but still feel broke at the end of that month?
Oh, tons of times. I feel like that's very, very common. It's more common that it's that way than it is most of the time that they're profitable. So I think it's one of the worst things for our industry that we just have this problem constantly.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we see over and over again. And I think that's why it's so important that we take this conversation just a little bit further tonight. So, we're going to talk about the real numbers, the KPIs and benchmarks that actually tell you the truth about your salon or spa business. And I'm going to say this right up front because we hear it all the time. Solos, suite owners, booth renters out there, you guys tend to say all the time, I don't need to track my numbers. I just look at my bank account. If there's money in there, I'm good. But friend, no, that is not the full picture. You can be fully booked and still not actually be growing. And regardless of whether you work for someone or you work for yourself, you always need to be growing. If you don't know things like your profit margin, your pre-book percentage, your retention, you don't really know if your business is healthy or not. So it doesn't matter if you work for somebody else. You have to know these things. And for the commission salon owners out there, these numbers, they're not optional for you guys. They aren't extra like everybody tends to say. They are literally one of the most important parts of running your business. And if you're not tracking them, you're literally leading your entire business with a blindfold on. And that's not the thing to do. When you lead blind, it costs you in profit, in peace of mind, and honestly, in people when you break it all down. So here is what we are going to break down tonight. First, we're going to walk through the business KPIs, the big picture numbers that tell you if your salon or your studio is actually healthy. So it's great for commission salon owners or solos. Then we're going to dig into the individual KPIs and benchmarks, the ones that you need to track for yourselves. Once again, if you are solo or if you have a team, this is important. And finally, we're going to talk about how to use these numbers, not just look at them and not understand them, but actually use them to grow your profit, to coach with clarity, and to create fair systems for raises, promotions, career paths, whatever it is that you're looking at. How does that sound, Chandra?
Yeah, I think it sounds good. And I hope that you guys really take this info and put it in your business because it's going to be so helpful.
Absolutely. It's so frustrating, right? Because we talk to people about this stuff every single day and we see the difference that it makes, not only in our own lives and businesses, but in the people that we coach. And yet there are people out there that know they need this information and they choose to just not use it or utilize it the way that they need to. And that's really frustrating because at the end of the day, for us, it's not about selling you something. It is about helping you be the best that you can be, the best business owner, the best salon, the best mentor, the best whatever it is that you want to be. And it all affects you on a personal level at the end of the day. And I think we forget that part so very often. Chandra, how did your life change when you finally started looking at these things?
Oh, I mean, I think I actually knew what my business was doing, and then it gave me the information I needed to know what I needed to do in order to grow or to get to the next level. And I think for me, I had some benchmarks in the very beginning from, we all get these things from manufacturer brands sometimes or things like that I was following, but they didn't mean anything to me. I'm like, okay, cool. We'll try to hit whatever this is, but it didn't have any sort of meaning behind it. And I feel like that's the reason a lot of us do fail with these using KPIs and benchmarks because we don't understand like what the true meaning is and what it actually does for the business.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've been in that boat too, and it's awful. And I feel like there are so many marketing companies out there all the time, and they just tell you that you need to spend more on ads or you need more clients, or there's business coaches out there that tell you you just need to hustle harder. I get so sick of hearing about that. That nearly tore me in two when people kept telling me that because I knew I had nothing left at the end of the day. Like there was no way to hustle harder. The best thing that you can do in your business is to stop guessing about what the problem is and actually figure out the problem. And 9 times out of 10, it comes down to everything that we're going to talk about tonight. The only way that you can figure that out is to know which numbers actually matter, what they should look like, and how to use them so that you can make better decisions. So if you're watching, grab a notebook, tag a friend who needs this, and let's just get into it right now. So the first part we got to start with is the big picture. These first numbers are what we at BBA like to call the health check numbers. They're not about one stylist and they're not about you behind the chair necessarily. These are the numbers that are going to tell you if your salon or your studio as a whole is actually sustainable. Because here's the thing, you can literally look at your calendar and see that you're booked out every week. You can have stylists hitting their personal goals, and the business itself can still be running in the negative every single month. Why? Because if the foundation numbers aren't ever right to begin with, there is no amount of effort at the chair that is going to be able to fix that. And I think that is a huge misconception that salon and spa owners face quite often. So let's break down the 5 business KPIs that every owner and every solo needs to know. Yes, you heard me right. Commission owners and solos out there. The first one is profit margin. We have to start here. Profit margin is the number that tells you if you are actually keeping money in your business or if it is all just kind of disappearing the moment that it comes in. Now, listen, you've heard us say this a million times, but the average salon, it runs at 1% to 3% profit if they're profitable at all, right? And that is just not okay. That's not why you took on the stress, the responsibility, the risk of owning a business, or it shouldn't be anyway. So for your profitability, your benchmark should be at least 20%. You heard me right. Those people out there telling you that commission salons cannot make over 10% are absolutely crazy. I am talking a minimum of 20%. That means for every $100 that comes into your business, at least $20 is going to stay in your business as true profit, not tips, not random cash that disappears before you track it, but actual profit after your rent, after your payroll, after your product, after your taxes, literally what you have left after everything is paid. Here's what that looks like in real life. Say your salon brings in $100,000 this month. That sounds amazing to a lot of you guys, right? But then you pay all of your bills, the rent, the payroll, back bar supplies, taxes, subscriptions, everything that you have to pay on a monthly basis. And at the end of the month, you are left with $5,000. That is only 5% profit margin. That's it. And if that's you right now, you probably feel like you're drowning because 5% isn't anything. You're probably thinking, how in the world can I be breaking sales records month after month, but have zero money left? Guys, this is exactly why we at BBA built the Savvy Tracker. Because when you track your weekly profit margin, you don't have to wait until tax time for your accountant to tell you the bad news, because 5% is bad news. Normal businesses hit 45% profitability on a monthly basis. With this tracker, you know in real time, if you're tracking it right, what you need to adjust and how the whole month is going to look, or if you are tanked and need to kind of turn direction. We can tell you from coaching hundreds of owners, the ones who start tracking profit margins weekly, they finally start sleeping better at night. I promise you that, because they know and see what's really happening. And if they don't like it, they can course correct. Chandra, from your perspective, why do you think profit margin is one of the hardest numbers for owners to actually face up to and look at?
I think because it tells you, like you said, this is a health check, right? It tells you how healthy your business actually is. And when you actually see that 5% or less or negative, when you actually start doing these numbers, I mean, it's hard pill to swallow, right? Like you feel like it's a failure and it's hard. So we just try to ignore it. We figure we always have money in the bank and we're kind of paying things and it is what it is. And we just don't ever want to face those numbers. And I think in this industry, especially, I don't know why, but we just have such a struggle when it comes to facing facts, when it comes to those numbers. And I would say even the commission salons are hard, but I think even more sometimes on the solo side is like, I've been there, so I get it. We don't want to know what that actually looks like or have to follow whatever that means to fix it. And so, yeah, I think we just don't.
Girl, I'm not even going to lie. When I was a solo, I didn't even know what profit margin was. I mean, I did, but I could care less, right? Like I saw money in the bank account. I spent it. It was what it was. It's such a bad way to do things. I will never forget one of the first times that I was actually profitable in my commission salon itself. And I remember, I think I called my dad and I was like, oh my gosh, my business was profitable this month. And he was like, or this month. And he was like, that's great. He was like, where are you sitting? And I was like 2%. And I was so excited about it. And he, multi-million-dollar business owner, was like, okay, we have a big problem here, right? Yeah. Like we don't realize how important this number is. So number 2 is going to be your cost per hour. This one is really simple to figure out. However, there are so many beauty business owners that just ignore it altogether. This one can be a real eye opener, I feel. Your cost per hour is what it actually costs you to keep your doors open for one single hour. And I'm not just talking about like the rent that you're paying, right? You have to include everything in this as well. Your payroll, utilities, back bar, product, software, merchant fees, insurance, cleaning supplies, literally all of it. You have to add it up and divide it by the total number of hours that your salon is open. And then you're going to get your cost per hour. Super simple. People just don't use it. Here's why this matters. Once you know that number, you can line it up against your service menu. And that's when a lot of owners realize some of the services that they thought were like their bread and butter are actually losing them money. I know Chandra and I both made this mistake. We have sat with owners also who swore up and down that their top book service was the thing kind of holding their business together. But once we compared it to their cost per hour, they saw the truth. They were busy and they were selling a lot of those, but they were losing money every single time. So it's really, really important to understand every single service on your menu has to bring in more than your cost per hour, period. It doesn't matter what it is. If it doesn't, and if it's not doing that right now, you have to make some changes. You can't lose money on any services that you do. You can either reprice it, adjust the timing, bundle it with maybe something different or something else, or you may just have to cut it out altogether. Chandra, I know you and I have sat with so many owners who were shocked when they saw these numbers for the first time, their cost per hour. What is one of the biggest light bulb moments that you remember when you've seen around this CPH number?
I just think the biggest light bulb moment is that they didn't ever look at this, so they didn't even know how much it was costing them to run their business. I mean, that's one of those things that you dig into and you're like, oh, this is actually costing me like $50 for every single hour of open time I have to sell. When you start looking at it like that, it changes your perspective completely. Like you start to lead your business, I feel like, with actual clarity and know what you need to do, whether it's for finances or for pricing or for payroll, whatever you have. It really gives you the true idea. And I feel like that light bulb moment is that, like, they're just like, oh my gosh, I never even knew this.
No, you're right. I mean, I didn't know this for the longest time, right? I remember color retouches, right? One of our most popular services, something that we do all the time. We had booked constantly. And I remember once I learned what this actually was, pulling it up, and I was like, holy crap, we are losing $25 for every single client that comes in just on a color retouch. You add that up for every client during the week, during the month, during the year, it was tens of thousands of dollars that my business was losing. So for those of you out there watching right now, how many of you know for a fact that every service that you are offering is being covered by your cost? And I don't mean covered by like 25 cents. You want it covered by like a 20% percentage. I'm trying to figure out how to say that. That's a tongue twister. But you want to up it at least 20% of what that costs you. It's really, really important because if you're losing money, there's probably, this is what kind of helped me shave down my service menu, Chandra. Like I was able to get rid of a lot of services that we had that there was just no way I could charge that much for to make it make sense. And so it simplified our menu. Did you find that with your studio as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely found that. I would say the biggest thing that happened for me when we started looking at that was really evaluating the service timing, like each of those services. It's like, okay, I was just willy-nilly letting people spend like 4 hours doing a balayage. And I realized, wow, we're literally losing like $50 every time you do a balayage. And so for me, the biggest thing was really kind of honing in on that service timing and figuring out how to make that more effective.
Yeah, choreography is so important. I know you and I had a big discussion about that when I was coaching you. Salon owners don't realize why there's parameters around service timing. There's a big, big reason for that, and your cost per hour plays into that for sure. Number 3 is your overall productivity. This one isn't about how full one stylist books look. It's about the salon's time as a whole, right? Out of all of the hours that your chairs are available, how many of those hours are actually filled with paying clients? The benchmark that we use at BBA is 80%. That means most of your hours are being used, right? But you still have just a little bit of room for growth, like new clients, last minute bookings, whatever that is. Now, here's why this number is so important. Owners come to us saying all the time, we are slammed. I think it's time to hire. And then we pull those numbers and we see that they're really only sitting at about 50 or 60% productivity wise. And this tells us the problem isn't really capacity, It's scheduling or timing, like Chandra was talking about earlier. They don't need to hire yet. They need to tighten up their books. They need to fill those slower days, and they need to focus on retention before they do anything. They really have to ask themselves if it's worth being open certain days, Chandra. I think this is something that you and I find all the time. And let's be honest about the situation. When I even brought this up to you, maybe closing an extra day, you were like, wait, what? You want me to close my business? And I was like, I sure do. I want you to give yourself and your employees another day off because you are losing money on this day. So we've seen this millions of times, right? Salons that are paying to keep the doors open on a certain day of the week that just doesn't make sense financially. How can adjusting this one thing or closing a day or whatever really make a difference when it comes to business ownership?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you take it back to that cost per hour, right? Like if you have all these hours available and it's costing you X amount of dollars for every single hour you're open, when you start looking at that number and you start figuring that out and you realize we're literally paying thousands of dollars every week to have these hours be open and we're not busy enough to make that make sense. So if you cut the hours, if you cut a day down, if you work on that service timing, it definitely starts to make everything tighten up, and then your profitability starts to go up because you're not losing all that money during all that time that you're open, but you're not doing anything. And I noticed that for us, like we closed a day and our revenue actually increased, which was surprising, but it did. And if we ever get to the point we want to add that day back on, you always have that option, right? But now we're not literally just throwing thousands of dollars away every single month just to have this random day open for no reason, clearly.
Absolutely. And that is such a, like, it sucks, right? It sucks that you have to close your business an extra day in certain ways because you want to be open and be profitable on those days. But it's also, on the flip side, such an amazing thing to be able to offer your employees another day off and know that it's not costing you anything. You're actually making more staying open the days that you need to be open. So there's pros and cons to it all. All right, the next one is retail. Now, Chandra and I are not dumb. We know that retail has shifted a lot in our industry. You've got Amazon, you've got online shopping, brands selling direct to consumer, like everything has changed, right? But because it's different now doesn't mean that it's not important. Retail is still one of the simplest ways to increase profit without adding more hours behind the chair for your team or for yourself. It builds trust with your clients, it strengthens your retention, and it positions you as the professional that they can rely on. When a client leaves with the products that they need, they're not just walking out with shampoo, they are walking out with a plan to protect their results until their next visit. That kind of follow through is what keeps them coming back. So even though we can't rely on retail like we once did because it has changed, it is still a key part of the puzzle. And here's the benchmark for that one. Retail should make up at least 10 to 15% of your total sales. That will tell you that your team is making the right recommendations. Clients are saying yes the way we need them to. And you are capturing that extra margin that is going to support the business that you need. And before we move on, I just got to say this. Yes, retail is always going to matter, but services are always going to be the backbone of your business. And I think that is where the shift has changed. Even though services were always the backbone, we didn't look at it that way. We focused a lot on the retail side. A lot of the coaching programs were like, push the retail, push the retail, push the retail. Now we have to look at it a little different. We still want the retail, but your services, your packages, your memberships, those have to be profitable on their own. You used to be able to make up a little bit on the retail side. You could give and take a little bit. It's not that way anymore. Because if those services, those memberships, those packages, if they aren't profitable, retail is never going to be enough to cover the gap anymore. So retail now should be looked at as a bonus, not the bailout. And I feel like that's how we used to look at it, as the bailout and not the bonus. Chandra, I know you have had conversations with owners who think retail doesn't really matter anymore at all because of Amazon, Ulta, Sephora, whatever it is. What do you tell them when you break down how even 10% of retail sales can completely change that profit margin? And what do you tell them when they just want to let their stylist get away with not selling retail anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's become a big issue because of it changing in the industry. I feel like owners are kind of like, oh, I've always had this uphill battle trying to get my team to sell retail, so now I just give up. I don't have to do it anymore. And it's like that's still a really important part of your revenue that's coming into the business. And even though that may be less important than it used to be, it still is important, and you still need to teach your team to be completing a service. Like it's still part of, like you said, it's a plan. It's not just selling retail. It's you gave them some really amazing specific service that cost a lot of money. It's important that they use your recommendations. It's important that they are doing what they need to be doing to make sure that client is happy and what they gave them stays. And so I think it's really shifting the focus to recommendations and thinking about it more on a recommendation side, as opposed to forcing these retail talks and these retail sales, because that never really worked. It was always an uphill battle, and now it's even harder. And so I think it's just really shifting that and realizing you can't stop having retail. You can't stop caring about these things, but really shifting that focus, because otherwise you will have even less of a profit margin.
No,
So
that's
we
true.
do need it, but yeah, I think it's changed, but I think we can't just give up on it. And that's what I feel like a lot of people are like, cool, I don't have to worry about this anymore. But no,
Well,
you
and it
still do.
should be part of the client journey, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they say yes or no, that recommendation should happen every single time. Every single time. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot. Our teams even get out of the habit with their regulars of recommending those
Mhm.
products. And we just can't, because an extra 20 here, 40 here, 60 here makes a big difference, not only to the business, but to their paychecks and to the client and what they are trying to preserve.
Yeah.
All right. Number 5 is cash flow and reserve. This one, it doesn't get talked about enough, like not even near enough, but it is one of the most important. Cash flow is simply, can you cover payroll, rent, product, taxes, and the bills without any stress at all, right? Or are you constantly having to move money around, waiting for tomorrow's deposits to cover today's expenses? That is how most owners are running and operating. They are reactive instead of planned out. And when you live that way, every single month is going to feel like you are scrambling, robbing Peter to pay Paul, per se. Then you've got the reserves. And let's be honest, most salons have zero when it comes to this. Zero. They just don't, which means if you have one slow January, one broken air conditioner, or one stylist that walks out, it is going to throw your entire business into chaos. Without reserves, you are always one hiccup away from panic, literally. Now, I know that savings sounds almost impossible when money already feels tight. We get it. We've been there. But here's the truth. If you do not start setting money aside, even just a little bit at a time, the cycle is never going to break. It's not. Even 1 to 2% of every deposit is going to add up over time. And if that could be the thing that gives you breathing room, let's just say, when something unexpected hits. Maybe you don't have the full amount to cover it, but hey, you got $500 more than what you ever had. This is why we preach and built the BBA profit plan. Because when I tried to use, and Chandra as well, profit first, it was great. We realized that it was a great system, but there were also several gaps, even profit first for salon owners. There were still a few gaps in there. So we built one that actually fits this industry specifically, like specifically. With it, your bills are going to be covered, profit is going to be growing, and reserves are building every single week. And once the salon owners out there put this into practice, the difference is literally night and day. They stop stressing every single Friday about payroll because they know the money is already there. So instead of gambling your way through a month, cash flow and reserves, they are going to give you stability. They're the piece that lets you make decisions with a clear head instead of always reacting to emergencies. Chandra, how did your life change when you started having cash reserves and a little bit of savings put back?
Oh, 100% better. I mean, I lived that way too, like deposit to deposit to deposit to deposit. Like you get stuck in that cycle, and it doesn't even seem realistic that you could build up any sort of savings. And I started very small too, just like you said. I mean, sometimes I would only put a 0.5% away or 1% for that first year of starting to do that, but it does add up. And when you just put a little bit away, you don't realize that it doesn't, you don't feel it. You don't notice it, you don't feel it, but you do start to feel better overall because you know you have something that you've saved. And then once you get that profitability up, you can put more and more away, which makes that even easier and it makes it even better. And so it just gives you the peace of mind that you don't have to scramble all the time and that you can breathe a little bit. And that is amazing.
It is. It feels really good. I'll never forget our AC went out in our building, and I had been following the plan that you and I created, and I was freaking out. Something that I wasn't good about was checking my reserves funds. Like I would put money in there, but I kind of pretended that it didn't exist, right? So I didn't look at it very often. But I remember telling my husband, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. This is like a $32,000 problem that I've got to try to fix. And pouring that much money into a building that you don't own is gut wrenching in itself, but it is what it is. And I was like, I'm going to have to look for a loan. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I pulled up my reserves and I had 68 grand in there. And I was like, holy crap. Like, how did I, you know what I mean? And so it does, it may seem like a little, but it adds up over time if you just forget about it and use it. In fact, Chandra and I have both had to dip into our reserves many, many times as business owners. And there is nothing wrong with that. The only thing that I will say is if you dip in, make sure that you replace it and replenish it. Right, Chandra?
Yep, you gotta do that for sure. Otherwise, you're back where you were.
100%. So, guys, those are the 5 big business KPIs every owner needs to know: profit margin, cost per hour, overall productivity, retail, with the reminder about service mix, right? And cash flow and reserves. Together, these are going to give you a true health check on your business. You cannot stop looking. You can't keep looking at the books just thinking that you're going to become rich. You can't. It's not going to happen because that isn't a true reality of what's going on in your business. When you learn to like track these numbers, you stop having to guess and scramble and do all of those things. You stop relying on how you're feeling or what your bank account balance is telling you. Instead, you know in real time whether the business is actually healthy or if something is off. And when you know the truth, you can fix it before it becomes a bigger problem. Chandra, when you think about all 5 of these business KPIs together, the 5 that we named, what is usually the one that shocks owners the most when we first start tracking it with them?
I mean, I really think there's 2. It's hard to pick one, but I would say profitability and cost per hour. Or not profitability, productivity and cost per hour. I feel like when they actually look at those 2 and realize where their business actually is at, it's the most eye-opening out of all of them that they can even start tracking. So I think those are the 2 most important ones and the 2 that give you the biggest light bulb moment and make you realize, I mean, need to make some changes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's really, really the 2 that probably, do make people think the most. Okay, we're going over, so let me start talking faster. Part 2 is individual KPIs and benchmarks. So We talked about the business ones, but the big picture, right? The health numbers and all of that, that's important. But that's only half of the story. It really is. The other half lives at the individual level. And I'm going to say this, I don't care if you are a solo. I said it in the beginning. If you're in a suite, if you're a commission salon owner with 10 stylists, you have to have individual KPIs regardless. Because if you're not tracking performance person by person, even if it's yourself, decisions, they start getting made for all of the wrong reasons. People get promoted because they've been around the longest, not because they have hit a standard. Raises get handed out because somebody asked for one, not because the numbers back it up. Or if you're solo, you can be working this full schedule every week, but your income never grows. You're taking the same amount. And without those clear benchmarks, it's hard to pinpoint the reason why. I'm going to be real with you guys. I learned this all the hard way. So years ago, I was with a coaching program that gave me this polished, it looked great KPI sheet, right? It looked so official. I trusted it and I used it. I tracked the numbers religiously. I used them in my one-on-one meetings. And I thought, okay, this is how it's supposed to work. I'm going to be all right. I've got something now, but nothing changed. And I didn't wait a month, 2 months. I waited years. Like I used it for years. My team wasn't growing. The culture felt really strained in my business. And my profit was basically non existent. I think I hit that 2%. That's kind of where I set at. That's embarrassing. But anyway, I remember sitting there thinking maybe KPIs just don't work anymore in salon businesses. But the truth was the KPIs, the benchmarks, that wasn't the problem. The problem was they weren't built for my salon. They didn't line up with my pricing, my overhead, my client flow, none of that. Once I was able to rebuild them with my pricing, my overhead, my client flow, all of that stuff in mind, oh my gosh, it made such a freaking difference. And I think that's what everybody needs to understand. This is why it's so important that you don't just pull KPIs off of the internet or get them from another salon owner or use a generic paper that a business coach is giving you. If you want them to move the needle in your business, you can't do that. They have to be built for your business specifically if you want them to work. Chandra, we have had so many members, so many, come into our program from other coaching companies where they were just handed these cookie cutter KPIs and benchmarks. And instead of helping, I feel like those numbers just frustrated them because they didn't work. How amazing is it when we sit down, customize these KPIs to actually fit their individual businesses, and then a few months later, during a check-in, we see that they've been able to promote stylists and their numbers are finally starting to move in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's so amazing. And I think when we do it with them and we really break it down for them at a customized level, they actually learn how to do it themselves, which I think is the most important thing, because instead of having to always try to find, whoever has all these answers for you, you can actually do it yourself and learn how to do it for what your specific needs are. And I think that's the best thing when we go through that process with them, is they're like, oh, now I get it. I understand what this number means. And now I know in the future, if things change in my business, how I go about adjusting these numbers to actually still continue to make sense.
Yeah, I think that's something that we pride ourselves on, right? Like in our coaching program is we aren't gatekeeping. We don't want to hand you a paper that's cookie cutter. We want to help you be able to do what you want to do. Before we dive into the actual list of what to track, I think we have to clear something up, because we hear people use the words KPIs and benchmarks like they are the same thing, but they're not. And that's important. A KPI is just the number itself. For example, your pre-book percentage, your average service ticket, your retail per client, whatever it is. A benchmark is the actual target for that number. So if your pre-book benchmark maybe 80%, right? That's the standard that you are working toward. And here's why that matters. If you only track KPIs without a benchmark, you're basically just looking at numbers with no context, right? Yeah. But if you set benchmarks without tracking the KPIs, then you've just got goals on paper with no way to measure the progress. So it doesn't make sense. You have to do them both. The KPI tells you where you are right now. The benchmark tells you where you're trying to go. When you put them together, you're going to have a roadmap instead of just random numbers and data floating around everywhere. So Chandra, let's talk about the core individual KPIs that people need to track. And there are 7 of these that will really move the needle, whether you are solo or you have a team. Number 1 is number of clients. And this one is really simple, right? How many actual people sat in your chair this month? Not how busy your days felt, not how many hours you were at the salon, the actual guest count. That one is very, very important. Number 2 is retail per client. This one is about total retail sales. It's about what each guest is actually taking home. Selling $300 in retail sounds great, but if you saw 100 clients, that's literally only $3 per client. That's not okay in any way, shape, or form. Number 3 is average service ticket. This is just the average a client spends every time they sit down with you. Let's say your benchmark is $85 and you're sitting at $70. That $15 gap, it doesn't sound like much, but over a few hundred guests, it's thousands of dollars that you are leaving on the table. Number 4 is new client request. This one tells you how many first-time clients are asking for you or for someone on your team specifically. So as an individual, that's going to be a little bit easier to track. But number 5 is your pre-book percentage. This is how many guests are booking their next appointment before they leave. We just got off a one-on-one call, and this is so important, guys. When this number is low, you are starting every month at 0. And that is exhausting for you or for your team. But when pre-book is strong, your books are stable, your income is more predictable, and you're not scrambling to fill the gaps every single week. Chandra, chime in on this and tell people why it's so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of summed it up, but it's so important because, yeah, if you don't try to book those people, you're leaving it to them, right? Like you have to train your clients, I feel like, to know what's expected to book their appointments. They may not come back in if you don't pre-book them. They might go somewhere else, or they might come in 12 weeks when you wanted them to come in 6 weeks. Like there's a lot of reasons, but if you don't put those people on the books before they leave the salon, you're leaving a lot of money on the table potentially, because they may not necessarily come back. A lot of things happen in that in between, but when you've got them locked in, I think you've got a much higher rate that they will return to see you again. And they may cancel or reschedule or move, but that's when you have the opportunity to reach out to them and say, hey, let's get you back on the books, or see if something went wrong on their last appointment. So it's really, really important for many reasons that you do this, and your bottom line is the biggest one.
Yep, for sure. And I think people always get confused in number 5, which is new client retention, and number 6, which is retention. So explain maybe the difference in new client retention and retention.
Yeah, so your new client retention is what you want to look at for when you had a new client. Did that new client come back at all? So if they had 5 or 6 new clients in a month and 3 of them came back, they're at 50% retention. If only 1 came back, they're going to be lower. If none came back, that's a huge problem, right? So knowing if people are returning to you as a solo or to your team members is huge for understanding what's going on in your business. And then your existing retention, or just your regular retention, that's people that are the base clientele that you have built. These are people that return multiple times. They return more than once. They're considered retained because they continue to come back over and over again. So if that number drops, something really bad is going on. You're losing clients right and left. So that's a huge red flag. And so those numbers are really, really important for you to know exactly how well someone is building, and if there's anything happening in the business that might not be good.
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that you need to make sure that your CRM system will differentiate in. This is a problem that we've seen with a lot of our members. Whatever CRM system they're using doesn't differentiate between the two, and that can really skew the numbers. So if your CRM system doesn't, you have to find a way to track that and make sure that it's okay. All right, number 7 is going to be add-on services. This is How often guests are saying yes to treatments, glosses, upgrades, whatever, anything extra that improves their results and is going to build loyalty. Add-ons are not just extra money. They are a part of giving clients a better outcome all the way around. And I think we miss this so often. In fact, I just pulled our add-on service report and I was not too happy with it. I will say in Q1 and Q2, we kind of kicked butt, took names. Q3, we were slacking. It was down. I'm embarrassed to say how much, but it was down big time. Chandra, why is this so important?
Yeah. Well, again, like you said, there's a lot of reasons, right? One of them's kind of like going back to the retail situation, even though you have to give that client everything that they need. That's your recommendation. If their hair is dry, if you're the expert, why aren't you offering them a solution to fix that? If it's damaged, same thing. Like there's so many things that you have at your disposal that can make this client's experience and their hair or whatever facial stuff, whatever you're offering, so much better, that you're leaving a lot on the table by not doing that. And then also the financial side. Like if your average service ticket is low, this is a really easy way to get it up. And it's not that hard to offer them things that they need. And I think that's where stylists or service providers get scared, because they think, oh, it's extra money, I don't want to ask them, or it's this and I don't want to ask them. And it's like, if you can fix a problem that this person has by offering them something that you have, you're not doing anything wrong. If they don't want it, can't afford it, they're just going to say no. But if you don't offer it, you're definitely leaving a lot of money on the table. It's surprising to me when we work with people and they start pushing their teams to start doing this, and their teams can do it, and they actually start adding those services on, and they start increasing that revenue. But the owners were always afraid to even push them because they were afraid to offer the services. It's such a funny thing and such a simple thing, but it always seems to be challenging.
No, you're right. It infuriates me that we as hairstylists, salon owners, estheticians, whatever it is, that we degrade ourselves so much, right? You have doctors that tell you to do this, that, and the other. And what do? You hop right on it. I mean, we're dealing with health stuff with my husband right now, and he is like buying all of this crap, thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of stuff, right? Not even a question. But us, we feel like we can't recommend or tell them what they need because this is more like a hobby than a job and we aren't taken seriously. And it infuriates me. I am appalled at the amount of money that hair school costs nowadays. It's literally almost 2 years worth of going to school to be a doctor. And so we need to take it a little bit more seriously, like we should. All right. When you put these 7 KPIs side by side with the right benchmarks, you finally get a clear picture of performance, whether that is your own performance as a solo or each individual stylist performance inside of your salon. Here's the thing. These aren't just numbers for numbers' sake, right? They are the tools that show you exactly where the gaps are and where the opportunities live as you move forward. So here's the part that a lot of owners miss. Sorry, I'm trying to talk as fast as I can, Chandra. Just tracking numbers, it doesn't change anything. You can run reports every single week. You can write numbers on a whiteboard. You can even bring them into every one-on-one meeting that you have. But if you stop there, nothing's going to change. The magic is in how you use the numbers that you have. For owners with a team, this is where the emotional conversations kind of come to the table, right? No more saying, hey, I feel like you should work on retail, or I wish you would try harder with pre-booking. That kind of feedback is going to be vague and it feels very personal to people, which is why it probably doesn't stick. Instead, you need to sit down with your real data and you can say, look, right now, you're averaging $3 per guest in retail. The benchmark is $10. That gap is costing you X amount of dollars a month. Here's what I want you to focus on this week to start closing that gap. That is how you coach your team. It's clear, it's factual, and it gives them something that they can actually work on. Chandra, you have done so many one-on-ones with our members where we have coached maybe their teams using these types of numbers or talking about these things. What is the difference you see in the conversation when it's based on data and not feelings?
Oh, I think they actually understand and listen, and they actually go out and take action. Because again, when it's based on feelings, none of that really means anything, right? Like if you're like, hey, you got to do this more, or your retention is low, so do this. They don't have any specific thing to shoot towards, and they don't have any specific roadmap or guideline on how to get there. And so when you start coaching your team that way, and they realize, oh my gosh, I could be making six figures, and all I had to do was these three things, and there I am, right? Like it actually puts more control in their hands, and they actually try harder to get there because now they get it. They're like, they understand how to get there. And I think that's the biggest difference once they start coaching that way.
I agree. And for solos, I think this matters just as much because without these numbers, every month is going to feel like you're starting over. Or if, let's just say, your pre-book is sitting at 30% and the benchmark that you have set for yourself is 70%, that's the real reason that your calendar probably feels like a roller coaster or your paycheck feels like a roller coaster, right? It's not that people just hate the way that you do hair. It's that the system isn't set up to secure their next appointment. You have to fix the number, and suddenly things are going to start to stabilize. Chandra, when you work with solos who finally see that their pre-book or retention is off, what usually starts changing for them once they fix that number?
Well, they definitely get busier, and they definitely start to see more money coming in, and they start to level up their professionalism a little bit. I know someone that I know really well. We had a conversation recently that she comes in and does a haircut, and then she has a huge gap, and she leaves and goes shopping or runs errand and then come back and does another color. And I'm like, who would ever want to work like that? I was like, if you can just actually learn how to, put these numbers into place, you don't have to be like that, because that just seems so stressful to be working that way, and then not even really knowing if you're growing. And so I think when you're solo, it's really, really important because you need to have some sort of gauge to tell you if you're actually building a sustainable business, and it's just you. So it's up to you to be sustainable and have a sustainable income and be able to pay all your bills. And this just gives you the guideline to do it. So following those empowers you too to actually be running a real business instead of just a random hobby where you're like, cool, I had a haircut today and now I'm going to go get my nails done and I'm going to come back and do somebody else. And I'm like, that's just so wacky. I would rather just organize my schedule, have these days I work and be packed for those days, and then take the rest of the time off if you want. But it's just, it's silly, but it's common. So having those benchmarks for solos, it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being a solo, and if I wouldn't have known these numbers, I would probably still be stuck in my suite because I had hit that ceiling, right? I paid attention to my numbers, and so I knew there is no more money to be made. Like I am working as many hours as I can. I'm servicing as many clients as I can. I cannot raise my price. Like it is impossible. I'm at a ceiling. So I have one of two options. I am happy with making 10K a month for the rest of my life, working my butt off, or I can start hiring, start building a business, start generating revenue a different way that doesn't require my own two hands and see what happens. So, yeah, super, super important. All right. Let's talk about raises and promotions really, really quickly. Without KPIs, these decisions, they happen for all of the wrong reasons. I have made every single one of them. Somebody's been around for years, so they expect a raise. Somebody is thinking about quitting, so you bump up their pay just to try to keep them. Somebody flat out just ask you, and you, being the great human you are, you feel guilty, so you give it to them. Guys, that's not leadership. That is just reacting to problems. Raises and promotions have to be tied to KPIs and benchmarks. And when you do that, everything changes. Growth is then earned. Everybody knows the standard. Everybody knows the path. And culture is going to shift in a positive direction because it is fair for everybody involved. At the end of the day, your team, all they want to know from you is two things: how can they make more money? And what do they need to do in order to get there? When you give them their career growth plans, their KPIs, their benchmarks, you are finally answering those questions in a way that makes sense to them. And when people know what is expected, they stop coasting or being lazy or whatever you want to call it, and they start chasing the win. They want to do better. And solos, I think this is for you too, right? I just talked about it. Your raise comes when you hit the benchmarks that prove that you're ready. Strong retention, higher average ticket, consistently full books. That's the green light to raise your prices, add new services, whatever it is you want to do. Without those markers, you're guessing the whole time, and that is not the way to do it. That is why so many stylists get raises or they burn out or they do whatever because they have no idea what's going on. Chandra, I want you to talk really quickly about how career paths and culture come together when you work with KPIs and benchmarks, because I've gone way over, so I'm going to let you take it from here.
It's fine. Yeah, no, I think your KPIs and benchmarks are part of that career path, and that career path, it really does shape your culture. Because when you create a career path where everybody understands what's expected of them, everybody understands what the goals are, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel for themselves. Like if their career plan is to make 100K a year take home, you can help them do that. They're going to then in your business work towards that and do what they need to do to get there. And if everybody's doing that, then you create that culture of growth and of collaboration and of teamwork, and everybody's really trying to help each other out because everybody wants to hit those goals and hit those KPIs and benchmarks, whether they're for themselves or they're for the whole salon, because it all ties it in together and they all know what direction they're supposed to be moving in. And I think when I really started forcing, not forcing, but pushing this into my team, into my salon, I was amazed at how easy it became for me to coach them and how easy it became for them to actually take the reins on their own and actually start hitting these numbers instead of me constantly trying to push them up the hill, trying to get them to do it, trying to get them to hit these numbers, because it changes your culture completely. And I think all of the owners we talk to want to have a culture like that. They strive to have a culture like that. That's what they're shooting for. That's what they want. And implementing this puts you so much closer to getting where you're trying to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is the only way for commission salon owners to be able to step out from their business eventually. I mean, a lot more plays into it. Don't think that this is the answer to everything, because it isn't. That, and for solos, it's the only way to know, hey, like, I'm done here. I got to do something else, or I'm going to be stuck in the same position forever. 100%. Okay, so let's put all of this crap that we've talked about together. We started with the business KPIs: profit margin, cost per hour, productivity, retail, cash flow, reserves, all of that stuff. Those are the health check numbers that tell you if your salon itself is going to actually be sustainable. Then we talked about the individual KPIs. Clients, retail per client, average ticket, new request, pre-book, retention, and add-on. I think that was them. Those are what show you how each stylist is really performing, or how you're doing if you're a solo, I guess you could say. From there, we talked about actually using those numbers, not just writing them down, but leading with them, coaching with them, guiding with them, making decisions from them, because that is the only way you can coach with clarity, not emotions, and do the hard conversations and build systems and things that are going to keep everything fair across the board. Finally, we talked about career paths. For commission salons, it's about, I think, opening doors into leadership, really, education, other roles, so people can see a future with you, right? Chandra talked a little bit about how that works, but those are all things that you can talk about and do when you have career growth plans. It's not about KPIs and benchmarks all the time. Like, there's a million other things that you can offer. For solos, it's about knowing when you've hit that glass ceiling And when you've got to decide what comes next in my life, here's the bottom line. These numbers, they are the story of your business, period. They are going to show you what's working, what's not, and where you need to focus next. So before we get off of here tonight, the challenge for you is don't try to do all of this crap at once. It gets really, really hard. It gets really, really overwhelming, right? All we need you to do is, if you are not tracking these things, pick one business KPI and one individual KPI if you have a team. Track those for literally 30 days and pay attention to what they tell you. The clarity that you will get from that, it's going to completely shift the way that you run your business. So you can only imagine when you actually start tracking all of them, utilizing all of them, what it will do. Chandra, you've seen this with our members. When they finally start tracking maybe even just 2 KPIs consistently, what changes for them within the first 30 days?
I mean, I think they have a better handle on their business almost instantly. And within that next 30 days, they start to realize and start implementing things that help make those better. They start to, work on pre-booking with their team if that's low. They start to really focus on those things, and then they start seeing everything grow even within 30 days. It doesn't take a long time for some of these benchmarks and KPIs to start actually working. So when you just focus on one or two, you see it starting to work, then you start focusing on the other ones, and it gets better and better. And then it just takes on a life of its own and runs your business for you practically. So definitely makes a huge difference for them.
No, I agree. It really, really does. And to make it even easier, we have a free resource that covers everything that we walked through tonight. Actually, it has a ton more information because I didn't get through all of it because we're running out of time. So you don't have to build it from scratch. We've got what you need. This is also where our work inside the Beauty Biz Agency comes into play. We don't just hand you generic numbers. We help you create benchmarks that are built for your business specifically, right? And we pair that with tools that we've created like our Savvy Tracker, our BBA Profit Plan, all of those things. Most of our owners see their profitability increase by at least 10% in the first 90 days of putting our systems into place. That is the difference when you stop guessing and you start leading with numbers that actually work for your business, when you have a plan that is given to you. So if you want to check out some of our free resources, maybe some of our coaching options, be sure that you visit us at www.thebeautybizagency.com. If you are serious about profit and stepping into that CEO seat, BBA was literally built for you. Chandra, before we wrap up, why don't you share how people can stay connected with us on social media, through our podcast, and how they can get some more information?
Yeah, you can definitely reach out to us on social media, Instagram and Facebook at the Beauty Biz Agency, or Beauty Biz Mentors on TikTok. And you could even shoot us an email if you really want to get some more information at admin@thebeautybizagency.com. And we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe to the station. That's our podcast. And that is on pretty much every platform where you can get a podcast. So Apple, Amazon, Spotify, all the things. So make sure you check us out there because we have a lot of really good information that we post. And I think you will absolutely love it and feel inspired. So make sure you follow us.
Love it. All right, friends. Sorry we took you over just a little bit, but that is it for tonight's BBA Live. Thank you so much. I'm sorry we didn't get to questions. I have some from YouTube over here, but we will get to those probably next month. So thank you once again for hanging out with us. Don't forget, we will be back next month, November 3rd at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for a full Q&A session. We always have a little bit of coaching, but then we go into Q&A. That's what we've got for you guys. Good night. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.